Welcome to CNET. I'm Ann Danahy, and today we're profiling candidates in the race for Halfmoon Township Board of Supervisors. Joining us now is Patti Hartle, a Democratic candidate in the race. Patti, thank you so much for coming in to talk with us.
You're welcome, Ann. I appreciate the opportunity.
Can you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for Board of Supervisors?
Yes, I have been on the board for 6 years now, and I thought it would be good to run again to continue serving the community. And I am a registered Republican. I did receive a fair amount of Democratic write-in votes. That is why I'm on the ballot as a Democratic candidate, but I am a registered Republican, and I am running a bipartisan campaign, and I am running again because of my background in, like I said, the experience I have from the last 6 years in local government service, and also from my background as project manager and just being able to look at both sides of issues and figure out what is in the best interest of the community, listen to what is being said, and work with our neighboring municipalities and things like that. So I wanted to continue the efforts that I have been working on for the last 6 years and feel that I can add benefit to Halfmoon Township.
Are there any priorities or issues that you think that will be the board's priority in the upcoming year?
The board's priority, things have greatly improved with our EMS situation and with our fire. We've been working on that the last year, and with a lot of help from interested community members and from the ambulance and fire services. But I think that's going to be a continual priority, because that is one of our course charters, is to provide emergency services for the township. We'll have road projects, and I think basically, I think a priority is to kind of get back to looking at what is important for our local area and for Halfmoon Township, and listening more to our citizens. And also, we are in the process of ordinance update. One of my priorities is preserving the rural character of our area. So we are updating ordinances, and we continually have to review those. So I think that's a priority for this year, so that we have in place, in addition to our 99-year land preservation lease program, that we're working towards some permanent purchases, and also keeping our ordinances such to help keep our rural character. So those I would see as priorities.
So the rural character, I mean, that's an interesting question, because Halfmoon Township is seeing growth in the number of residents. It has been seeing that over the years. Obviously, it's not the most populated area in the center region or center
Right.
or county, but it is seeing growth. Do you support the path the township is on now? Are there any changes you think that need to be looked at when it comes to planning and development and planning for that growth?
I think we are on a fairly good path. We just have to strengthen that path and continue to be diligent about it. We do have, like I said, the open space preservation program has been in effect now for, I think, close to 20 years in the township, and I've been on the open space board for at least 10 years. And we have that. We're also working with partnerships with the county and with Clearwater Conservancy to help permanently preserve. We have one currently in process that was a leased property that we're currently permanently preserving, and we've done that one other property in the past. So I think that program, the lease program, has helped us to keep some land preserved, and now we have the more ability to permanently preserve it. But I think another aspect of that is also, like I said, through regulations, through ordinances, to help control where your development is, and to do a little more planning as to where you would see development when it comes, but definitely to control it. So I think we're working towards it. I think we still have some work to do, but I think that is something that our board has insight and is working on.
And you mentioned also listening to residents, making
Yes.
sure you hear what they're saying. What are you hearing from residents? What do you think they want to see?
As far as
Just
the-
when from
In-
the supervisors.
You mean in general, not necessarily with the rural
yeah,
character? Okay,
yeah.
I was just, we'll just
Yeah.
check the topic there. We are hearing the people like the rural character, the open space. I think they're looking for maybe a little more outdoor opportunities, like with, improving our, we do have a nice new park that, fairly new, that is heavily used. I think we could use some more outdoor opportunity things. We've heard from the residents concerning, how's our staffing, are we adequately staffed? We've heard from the residents regarding, the majority of what we've heard from is more and better support for the library, and from the ones we've heard from. And that, and just keeping things nice, like improving. We've recently updated our nuisance ordinances and things like that. So we're getting input on that, and we got a great deal of input from the citizens regarding the emergency services when we had issues with the ambulance service potentially closing, and then with funding the fire companies. So we've had a great deal of input there, and it's been greatly appreciated because the citizens provided different aspects, different things to think about, and they also stepped up and participated in helping to ensure that we have those services.
And you mentioned the staffing levels. Do you
Yes.
think the township should have a township manager? Is that something that you think needs to be filled, and why or why not?
That, for a township the size of Half Moon, we've had some managers in the past. Currently, our staff has really stepped up and is filling that position. I think there could potentially be some gaps in certain things that we may need to look at. Whether we need a full-time manager or not, I'm not convinced of that, but I think what we do need to keep looking at is what are maybe some of those manager duties that we still need to fill, and whether that's working with our current staff to do that, or maybe looking at some part-time assistants. I think we have a little bit of research to do, but like I said, they've really stepped up and filled in, and we have been working with them to make sure things are covered. So, there's some benefits a manager would bring, but I don't know that we can potentially have all the work that we need for a full-time manager. So that is being looked into. Plus, with a manager, if it's called township manager by the second-class code, then you have to do certain things, and you have to have the job description approved by ordinance, and I think, or by public hearing. So if we call that something else, then we have a little more leeway. So still on the table, but
So under discussion.
Under
Okay.
discussion.
On the topic of the SCLO Center Region Library, do you think the township should be doing more, less? Where do you stand on that? Because there has been discussion about funding for the library, which comes from the municipalities.
Right. I mean, SCLO, for a community of the size of State College, SCLO is really a premier library, and they're one of the top ones in the state, and that has been in large part because of the municipal funding, and it's a great resource for all the neighboring communities. Yet the majority of the board voted to pull out of supporting the library through the COG contract, and I think this past year we did vote to provide I think $15,000 to the Center Federation, which is 4 or 5 libraries. But my concern is when we were funding SCLO directly, SCLO was supporting those libraries in various ways, because they were helping them with IT services, with circulation materials, with different things that was making them stronger. And I'm talking about Phillipsburg, Center Hall, Bellefonte. They're all part of the Federation. Now SCLO, due to our cut, may not be able to do that. So even though we're giving a little bit to the Federation, I don't know if it's going to cover all the services that SCLO was. So I am in favor of basically looking into things more and supporting them past our contract requirement was, the last one I think was 50,000. Now we gave 15 to spread around to the entities of the Federation. So I don't know that that's really enough. I think we need to, even if we don't get back into the contract, I think we need to look at more support there. And our citizens will be impacted because there will be certain services that have been extended out to Half Moon that will be taken away. So I think it'll be interesting now to see what kind of feedback we're getting from our citizens starting in 2024 when those services are taken away.
And Half Moon is also a member of Center Region Council of Governments. You mentioned
Yes.
COG, and
Yes.
that also provides a number of services to the member municipalities. Do you support that? Are there any changes or new approaches you would like to see when it comes to COG and Half Moon's support of it?
No, I've been involved, like I said, for the 6 years I've been in, there's different committees that supervisors serve on that are all part of the COG. You know, there's finance, facilities, there's different parks and recs, there's Alpha. But as far Half Moon right now, since we're no longer in the library and we're not in the fire company and we're not in the parks and rec, we're basically down to planning services, to regional planning and code, and those are essential services, and that's basically what we participate in. So while we still benefit though from all the great parks and the library that are in the area. So no, I think and there again, if you look, COG, the Center Region COG is a leader basically in COG and in that form of government, and a lot of different entities that want to do that look to the Center Region COG as an example. So I think they've done a great job for the region because everybody combining and joining forces and funds has provided a lot of great services and benefits to the community. So no, I think, I think for what COG was chartered to do, they are doing very well, and because you have the different municipalities all working together to regulate that, and I think it's worked very well.
Patti, we have less than a minute left. Is there
Yes.
anything else you'd like to say to voters?
No, I appreciate this opportunity to interview and have done so for the primary in this, and I would just ask the Half Moon voters to look at the interviews that are out on CNET, and that those that participate are willing to answer the questions and to provide you with how we feel on the topics. And while not everybody may agree, just know that I do look at both sides, listen to people, and try to make the decision that is best for the community, and only at that level. So.
Patti Hartle, thank you for coming in to talk with us.
Thank you very much.
We've been talking with Patti Hartle, a Democratic candidate in the race for Halfmoon Township Board of Supervisors. All candidates on the ballot were invited to join us at CNET. I'm Ann Danahy. Thank you for watching, and please remember to vote in the election November 7th. Hello and welcome to CNET's 2023 election coverage. I'm Ann Danahy, and today we're profiling the race for Halfmoon Township Board of Supervisors. Joining us now is Tammy Perkins, a Democratic candidate in the race for Board of Supervisors. Hi Tammy, thank you for coming in to talk with us.
Hi Ann, thank you for having me.
Can you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and why you're running?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in animal science. I have a master's degree in agriculture and extension education. My husband and I have lived in Halfmoon Township for 23 years now. We've raised our 3 children in the township. And I'd like to believe that the traits that I've instilled in my children, traits such as honesty, integrity, compassion, welcoming for all, are traits that I will bring to the Board of Supervisors. I'm also a breast cancer survivor, going on 12 years now. And as a breast cancer survivor, one thing you learn is to have a different perspective on things. So again, that's a trait that I am going to bring to the Board of Supervisors within Halfmoon Township. We love living in Halfmoon Township. There's a lot of people that do. And a lot of those qualities that brought us as well as other residents to Halfmoon Township are some of those qualities that I want to maintain as part of the Board of Supervisors.
What would you see as the priority if you were elected?
Priority, I think it's budgetary needs. Certainly one of the largest challenges that the township has had in the last year has dealt with funding for emergency services. While we have a solution now, we need long-term solutions. Halfmoon Township did put a funding formula in place for some of the emergency services. Very supportive of the funding formula. I think it's a great idea. What I'd like to see is that funding formula be taken out for the next 5 or 10 years and allow for more predictable funding for both the township as well as the emergency services.
Are you concerned about where the funding to do that would come from, or how would you see that playing out?
Absolutely. I think that's always a concern. So we've always contributed to our emergency services. And I say that because it's not just Port Matilda Emergency Services and Fire Department that supports us, but Alpha and Warriors Mark as well. So we've always had funds in our budget to support those fire companies. One thing that does concern me is we had a dedicated fire fund, and that fire fund was for emergency services as well as capital improvements that may come along that are in addition to the regular budget. That fire fund is no longer in place. And so that's one thing that's definitely very concerning for me as we look forward into the future with our emergency services needing capital improvements, new trucks that may happen unexpectedly, that type of stuff.
And you mentioned the quality of life and the character of the township as you enjoy living there. And of course, the township is seeing a growth in residents, maybe not the same level of growth as in some places in Center County, but it is seeing a growing number of residents. Do you support the approach being taken now to kind of planning and developing growth, or are there any things that you would like to take a look at or do differently?
Absolutely. I mean, I do think growth in Halfmoon Township has slowed a little bit. That's not to say it's not going to pick up. We still have a lot of land that's available if developers choose. But, one of the characteristics that's brought so many people out there is the open space, and the rural character. I do want to see a long-term vision for preserving that. We do have an open space program, which is very valuable. I want to make sure we maintain that. But I think we do need to find a balance in terms of, for the rest of the open land that we have, is that something that's going to go into our open space preservation program? That's not for us to decide, that's for the landowner to decide. Or is it going to go into development? And again, that's a landowner decision. So I think we need to have a vision for the future because we are going to get developed more at some point. The question is when, and what does that look like?
If you were to explain your vision of it, what would that be? Or are you hearing from voters what they would like to see?
Definitely, as I'm out talking to residents, there are lots of people that don't want any more development. But again, that's out of our control because we're not the landowners. But my vision would be to try to control that. We already have pockets of development throughout the township, which I think is great. And I think if we continue to maintain those pockets and maybe if any growth occurs, keep it within those pockets so that we can have larger tracts of land that we can preserve.
Another issue that's come up in the township is the position of township manager, which is not filled or is open right now. Do you think that should be a filled position, or do you think no, it should continue as it is now? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I believe we're the only township in Center County without a manager. We have 2 great staff people that have been there long-term in the township. I can't say enough good things about our current staff people. However, and they've picked up a lot of the void since we've lost a manager, and again, appreciative of that. But I do think there are some staffing needs that we have, some gaps that need to be filled. I think we need to do a better analysis of what those gaps are and what those needs are, and then look for a staff person to fill that, whether that's a manager or whether that's some other type of position, whether it's full-time or part-time. I don't know until we take a better look as to what those staffing needs are and those gaps that we need to fill.
Do you see that as following along a particular timeline, or is there any urgency to it?
I think as time goes on, there's going to be more and more urgency. I mean, it's been a while already. I lost track of time, but a year maybe. So, I think we're going to get into a situation where, we might fall behind the eight ball on some things or overlook some things. For example, our ordinances on a regular basis need to be reviewed and updated. And right now we don't have anybody to do that. And so we don't want to get behind some of those things and then get into a predicament that we can't get out of. So the sooner we can evaluate that and determine our needs, I think the better.
And Halfmoon Township is a member of the Center Region Council of Governments, and it provides different services, optional services to the member municipalities. Do you support that? Are there any changes or new directions you would like to see with COG in the future?
Certainly. With COG, that's always kind of a bit of a controversy depending on who you talk to. As you mentioned, we're part members of the COG. I think there are some benefits to COG, and COG services do give our township some protections when it comes to zoning and planning and such like that. And I think those are very beneficial. I think it would be not as cost effective if we went off 100% on our own without the support of COG and the backing of COG and their staffing.
And related to that, SCLO Center Region Library is also something that gets its support from the member municipalities, and Halfmoon Township supervisors voted in December, I believe, to change the funding in future years. Where do you stand on that? Do you think the township should continue to support SCLO Library? Do you think it should have more support, less support?
Sure. That is correct. Last year, December, the supervisors voted to withdraw from the SCLO contract. So our contract with SCLO will end December 31st, and we will no longer be part of SCLO. That township did, however, approve funding for next year, but it doesn't go directly to SCLO, it goes to the library foundations. So hopefully SCLO does get a good portion of that. But, as far as future discussions, I will definitely encourage the board to continue to support SCLO and other libraries within our system.
And we've been talking about different options and different things that you'd like to see the board and the township support. Again, I'll just bring up the question of where the finances or funding from that would come from. Is there a concern, are you hearing it all from voters when you're talking to people about taxes and taxes going up possibly?
Yeah, that's definitely a concern. Some people are very happy that there was a reduction in our taxes this year, but I caution people because reduction in taxes also mean a reduction in services. And depending on what services that is, that could mean safety concerns for our residents. And so that's very concerning to me. I'm not for raising taxes. I'm for taking a look at the budget and being the most effective that we can. However, having said that, I think it's important that when residents get their tax statement, that they see certain line items. So, for example, we have the general fund line item. You'll see how many mills is there. And you'll also see 2 mills that is designated for the open space preservation program. I think it's also important that people see how many mills is dedicated for the fire department and dedicated for our EMS. Right now, we don't have that. Everything comes out of the general fund. So that's one thing I'd like to see so that it gives residents a better understanding of where their taxes are going.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to voters out there?
Sure. As a resident of Halfmoon Township, I would work for you as a board of supervisors. I'm a person who likes to listen to both sides. I'm for open communication. I like to look at the facts, and all of those help me make an informed decision and hopefully a workable solution for all. My goal is to increase communication between the board of supervisors and residents. And lastly, I want to thank CNET because I think opportunities like this for residents to go somewhere and find where candidates stand on issues and hear directly from the candidate, I think is very important. So I encourage residents to seek out those information that they're looking for and really know the candidates that they're voting for.
And Tammy, we have another minute left. I wondered if you could just expand on that idea of increased communication with the residents of the township.
Yeah, I think in the last couple of years, a lot of residents feel that their voices are not heard, that the supervisors don't care. And I want residents to know that I do care and that I do want to hear from you. And whether it's you having the opportunity to speak at a board meeting or it's you having the opportunity to call me directly or send me an email, to know that I'm going to respond to you and that I'm going to listen to you and that I welcome your input, good or bad. I think, looking in, again, it comes to that different perspective. You're going to have a different perspective than me, so why not listen to that?
Tammy Perkins, thank you so much for coming in to talk with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
We've been talking with Tammy Perkins, a Democratic candidate in the race for Halfmoon Township Board of Supervisors. All candidates on the ballot were invited to join us at CNET. I'm Ann Danahy. Thank you for watching, and please remember to vote in the election November 7th.